IdeaCity, the smartest people, the biggest ideas.
Just before they get started, I want to tell you a little bit about my own experience. I recently had myself checked out from stem to stern, like inside out and outside in. And I did that in the beautiful surroundings of the Canyon Ranch at Lenox, Massachusetts. And I came to be there because I'd gone to a medical conference, first time ever for me as part of my research, really, for IdeaCity, and had learned there that among the many new marvels was this rapid advance in the acuity of body imaging. And in my layman's understanding of it, it meant that machines could now see more deeply into your body, which in a sense meant that it could look into the future of your health, because there's lots of stuff that's incubating in there and only manifests, of course, years later when it's likely to kill you. And how these guys came to be on stage is another fellow who's sort of part of our little gang and whose work you've seen here in previous years, Alexander Tsiaris, these beautiful images into the human body, had hatched a plot to do a series of programs in which he was going to detail all the major diseases. We were going to shoot a process of therapy at the Canyon Ranch, but we needed a guinea pig. We needed a total wreck, really, if we could find one. And it turns out that John Perry Barlow, who has been a rancher and a friend, confidant, and lyricist for the Grateful Dead, was even in worse shape than I was. And so he became the subject of the exercise, and now I'll leave these two fine gentlemen to pick up the story.
Thanks, Moses. Well, Moses mentioned that in all of us there are these possible problems incubating and ready to display themselves when they could be potentially lethal. And that's a scary thought, of course, one that concerns us all. And actually that kind of anxiety was one of the reasons why it was part of the decision that I had making to get into medicine. And I knew that health and illness was really the great equalizer, that everybody sooner or later was going to get sick. And when that time came for me, I wanted to have a leg up and have an inside track on what the best approach would be to take care of myself. And as Moses mentioned, I immediately realized that in many people there are these conditions, problems brewing. And it's not until they come to a head and explode that somebody gets that so-called wake-up call that might lead to a change in their lifestyle. And what I realized when I got to Canyon Ranch was really a revelation, and that was I knew a lot about illness. I knew about all the diseases and what the treatment was and how to find them and diagnose and treat them, but I didn't know a damn thing about health. And the last 12 years I've really spent learning about health, and that is, how do we measure health? How do we assess someone's health? How do we improve someone's health? And there's a whole new science and a new area that's growing about how to not just detect, diagnose, and treat illness, but how to identify and measure and promote health. And the two are very different approaches. And many of us will go through that process of getting a wake-up call. And in fact, we went through that process with John, where John had a little wake-up call of his own. And it was no surprise to many of us that that might have happened, but I think it might have caught John by surprise, as it does most people, because we really, health, for the most part, is sort of like the judicial system, and that is people consider themselves to be healthy until proven unhealthy. And that's a real mistake, and that is we're not always healthy as long as we don't feel sick or have some disease or condition. And we really need to look at health in a different way to identify how healthy somebody really is. And so John had this wake-up call that we were able to document through a video and a documentary that was made and will air on the Discovery Channel in the fall. But we've made a condensed version of that, about 10 minutes, that really articulates what happened with John around this wake-up call. So if you could run the DVD, please.
Live fast, die young, enjoy the ride. That was me. I've been a Wyoming cattle rancher, rock and roll songwriter for the Grateful Dead, and a world-traveling troublemaker on the subject of freedom in cyberspace, among a lot of other things. But Between these occupations and helping to raise 3 daughters, I lived hard, worked hard, drank hard, smoked like an industrial zone, and ate a lot of processed crap.
I need a miracle every day.
I could possibly be the world's most scanned man. One doctor said that with all the digital information they have on me now, he could probably email me someplace. The idea was to get a good look at me by slicing me into hundreds of cross-sections, then assembling them into the most totally nude version of myself. See what I mean? Pretty cool, huh? Thanks to the folks at Anatomical Travelogue, I'm the benefactor of the most high-tech and extensive quantification of a biological makeover yet. This multi-dimensional inner mirror definitely appeals to my narcissism. I think it also saved my life. It all started in New York City at a place called Inner Imaging.
Hey, John, take a deep breath, eh?
So this is basically a big cathode ray tube, you know, kind of like a television. It's like a reality show starring my heart, and tonight we'll find out what kind of shape it's in.
John, this is your heart here, and this white that we see here in the arteries, that is plaque, and there is a lot of it. You are in some trouble in terms of the potential of having heart disease. Compared to other people your age, you're in the 86th percentile, meaning more plaque than 85%, less than 14% of people your age.
Well, that...
I see here from your questionnaire that you are a smoker.
I am at the moment.
John, that absolutely has to stop. You have smoked your last cigarette.
I've been in denial long enough, I can probably afford it another couple of days. That was scary. Of course I knew smoking could kill me. What I didn't know was that my next cigarette could kill me. With that in mind, I stubbed out what may be my last bud and headed to the renowned health resort called Canyon Ranch.
How do you consider your health overall?
Well, I thought it was better than it turns out to be.
You've been operating under the assumption that your heart's been fine, and it wasn't until this scan
You
just
got it.
Surprise.
I was a rancher for a long time and treated my body sort of casually. One of my discs got severely displaced. One of them basically wore away, and then I had a disc basically explode. I sheared the ball of my shoulder off in the socket. Back in '80, I almost died from a staph infection in my elbow that went systemic. I came down with pneumonia. I have chronic allergies, ulcerative colitis, psoriasis, and I've always had a thyroid deficiency. As far as having failures of my physical organism, there hasn't been that much.
I think it's curious that you consider your health good, and yet...
Well, never doubt the power of denial.
You think that's pretty powerful?
You can get accustomed to anything. The good news just keeps on coming. Not only is my heart ready to give out, but my cholesterol is through the roof, my insulin resistance is about 5 Twinkies short of adult onset diabetes, I'm overweight, I have constant back pain, and I'm allergic to just about everything that tastes good. I need to make some big changes or I'm a dead man. The upside is, for the next 4 months, I have full access to the best life changers money can buy.
Have you ever tried soy nuts?
Soy nuts?
Mm-hmm. Do you use any cheese substitutes?
I'm pretty sure you have a mechanical problem.
I actually had a long walk today where I was not suffering, which is the first time I think that's happened in 5 years.
I'm just amazed. I mean, the fascinating thing was none of those changes on the EKG that you had before. They've resolved. You know, those changes that suggested that there was a restriction in blood flow, gone. So in 3.5 months, his biological age has gone from an average of 80 years old. He was 56 years old in February, but had the body of an 80-year-old. And now he's 56 years old in the body of a 52-year-old.
I have run into people recently who haven't seen me in 4 months, who use the word miracle to describe the difference. And, you know, I don't I don't disagree with them that strongly. I mean, I think that it's been a pretty miraculous transformation. I feel like a different guy in a lot of ways. I certainly never thought I was going to live to an age where all my previous self-abuse would come home to roost. Can actually turn it around and become younger physically, which I feel like I am.
I need a miracle every day.
Yeah, I just have to tell you that it's been a great pleasure working with John. There's never a dull moment. It was a great learning experience. And I should also mention that all the scans that you saw of inside of the body were actually John's body. We learned so much about, not just about John, but about the biochemistry in his body. You can see all the tests that were run when he was there. It wasn't just scanning his body. It was looking at his blood and how his body functioned under stress and how he responded to exercise and how he slept, what his coping strategies were. And these are all very enlightening parts of working with John. And I'd like to hear from you, John, what your thoughts are.
It has been an incredible experience. I'm sorry for several things, one of which is that I didn't get better embarrassment insurance before that was done. There is something marvelous about feeling that kind of transformation, feeling your odometer rolling in reverse, which I think mine did, and does periodically. But you know, the real challenge is that having learned something like that, I still traveled 30 miles in the last month and have been fighting cigarettes. You know, having seen my heart like that, I still have that impulse. Now, I don't understand that. And I think that before we can really address how it is that people get healthy, we have to address why it is that many of us want to become unhealthy.
I think you're right, John. And you know, one of the things that I've learned in the last 12 years of dealing with people around their health is that the medical side of this is the easy part. You know, measuring someone's body composition and learning what their fitness level is, and if they have any conditions that need treatment, and knowing their blood pressure. That's the easy part. The hard part is how do you affect long-term behavioral change that people can actually successfully continue with. And that's been the challenge. And I think that's one place where we need ideas. We need better ideas about how people really can maintain healthy lifestyles forever, as opposed to just for short periods of time. Thank you.
Get the latest Idealist news, presenter information, and watch streaming video at www.ideacityonline.com.